So how did you get into farming and all of this in the first place?
Yeah, so Brittany and I, it's chicken math, right? So we bought some chickens, I don't know, like almost 10 years ago at the spring hatching at the local hardware store, right? So we had 4 or 5 chickens, and then we got some goats, and it just kind of grew from there. It was always a hobby. So we got into honeybees for a while, right? And eventually, the people that we talk to, first generation farmers, typically go through this old McDonald phase, right, where you just get everything, and then all of a sudden you figure out what you're good at, and if you want to stay profitable and really make a go at it, you figure out what you're good at and you focus on those things. We definitely don't believe in what's called monoculture. We don't think it's good to only have one type of thing going on the farm. Economically, it's a little bit dangerous, and as well as it's not good for land to only have one thing. But certainly focusing on what you're good at is important, right? So we got serious around 2017, and we'd always kind of talked about wanting to grow up and get a farm. And well, I was during Operation Inherent Resolve, I was serving in Iraq and Syria, and on a particular mission, flying along, and looked down and watching the Kurdish people farm, right in the middle of a war, and I just thought that was the most powerful thing. And so I decided when I got home I was going to get serious about farming, and my wife found the place, and I'd never seen it, and she'd always wanted a farmhouse, and I'd always wanted a log cabin, and this was kind of perfect, right? So I sent my dad up to check it out, and he liked it, and so a few days after I got home, we closed on the property and started work. And when we moved here, we just had the house, the garage, and one barn, and everything else we built since 2017.
Wow.
No pastures or anything.
Yeah, it was just open land.
So kind of tell me about where your farm is at today, like what you have and what you do and stuff like that.
Sure, yeah, it varies at any point in time, but as of right now, we have about 100 land hens. They're free range. We keep them in their what's called a chicken laying tractor, or it's basically a trailer that we move around behind the cattle. We keep them in that till about 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, and then let them out. And so they lay all their eggs, and then they go out free range, eat bugs, and live an amazing life. So we have about 100 of those. Currently we have 400 broiler chickens, so they'll grow up to be meat for people. They're raised on pasture as well. Currently they're in the brooder. They have to live there for a couple of weeks until they feather out, and then they go out to the pasture. We have, between the few farms, we've got about 50 head of cattle, which is always growing. We're trying to get up to about 150. And then we also have pastured hogs that we raise as well. Right now, they're in the cattle feed lot. So it's not a feed lot, it's a winter lot. For about a month and a half or 2 months, whenever the grass runs out, we may have to put the cattle in a confined area to feed hay and to work them, to make sure the calves are doing good, to make sure the ear tags are still good to go. And so
it also has a purpose.
Right, yeah. So I guess I'll explain that. Their manure so the soil's inactive in the winter, or not as active. And so the manure that's put out there, the soil can't metabolize that as easily. So we add wood chips to the manure to save that, and we also spread out corn inside of it to allow that corn to ferment. And as that builds up, the cows go back out on pasture, and then we bring the hogs out of the pasture and into there, and they'll root the corn up, which works out great for us because that hard pack is hard to get out. So they root it all up for us, and then we scoop it out and compost it, and then it turns into soil for vegetables or spread out into the fields in the summertime when things are booming.
Oh my gosh! So do you guys even like go to the grocery? Like, do you just make everything here? Like,
we're
vegetables
working
and stuff too.
We're working.
I bought meat from the store and probably, I can't tell. I don't even know when. I mean.
Yeah, because you have it. Well,
yeah.
And you want to kind of tell me a little bit about that, like how your product is better than stuff that comes from the store.
Yeah, absolutely. So the eggs are higher in nutrients because the chickens are out there getting exercise, sunshine, vitamin D. We don't have to give antibiotics from day one, and you can change the name of antibiotics and be tricky with it like the major industry does if you want, I guess, but it's antibiotics. Anyway, so the cattle were only fed grass, period. Grass-fed beef is higher in omega-3s and a laundry list of other nutrients that